Welcome to Networking RX, a podcast devoted to helping business professionals like you enhance your networking skills in order to become more proficient giving and receiving quality business referrals and improving the overall quality of your life and the lives of those around you. The Networking RX podcast is a production of AmSpirit Business Connections, an organization whose mission is to empower business success through networking.
I love this saying. Somebody hit me with it a couple years ago. Actually, it was Dr. Rob Bell hit me with it. But you can count the number of seeds in an apple. Got an apple open, you can count the number of seeds that are in there. But you can never count the number of apples in a seed. And when he told me that, and he said, this isn't my saying, but when he told me that, it was really kind of a wow, a prophetic moment, because it's like, man, that it just makes so much, that applies to so many things, certainly apples, but it also applies to relationships. Today I have on with me the chief change maker of Changemakers, Kimberly Rice, and she's also the president, chief strategist at KLM Marketing. She's been on before. A couple of years ago, she was on the podcast. We've known each other for a while, and I knew she was coming back on, and I was thinking about what Rob had said. And a couple years ago, it was during the pandemic, Kimberly introduced me to a guy by the name of Scott Mason. Shout out to Scott. Scott introduced me to Sajal Thacker. Sajal introduced me to Brian Vachon. And and then I got introduced to this guy, Simon Town, over in UK, and things just exploded in my world. And that seed, the original seed, was Kimberly Rice. And just the ability to just make that one introduction. And I don't think she had an agenda at that point. Just, hey, you guys will like each other, is really, if I recall, and we certainly did. So Kimberly, welcome to the program. Welcome back. I know you're doing great things. We talked quite a bit before we hit record. When you were on before, we talked about your book, Rainmaker Roadmap. How are we doing?
We're doing great, Frank. Thank you so much. It's great to see you. Thank you for inviting me back. It's always a pleasure. It's always so uplifting to be in your company.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Not everybody says that. I have kids. They, you and I were talking before we hit record. We were talking about relationships, and my way of looking at it is you talked about resilience and durability, and we touched on imposter syndrome. And I've always said that the most important relationship we have is with ourselves. And so many people trip themselves up before they really even get going. You work with a lot of attorneys, where it's probably, well, I think imposter syndrome's pretty prevalent, but I think attorneys, there's always comparisons. There's always billable hours. Who's a super attorney in this category? You don't know whatever. We all look at everyone else's life and think it's wonderful, and that's not true, but we think it's wonderful. So, yeah, I guess let's talk about your work and this new program you're in with respect to resilience and helping people become more resilient.
Yeah, thank you, Frank. It's been it's been quite a journey, and I have worked in the legal services world for over 30 years. It's been very rewarding in some respects, and has been horrifying in other respects, to the extent that witnessing up close what truly goes on in law firm life, attorneys practicing in private practice. There is nothing that could prepare a well-adjusted individual for what they're about to enter into in a law firm environment. Especially when I speak about and work with women lawyers, they all tell me, and I saw it up close. I worked inside 3 different law firms and regional firms here in the Philadelphia metro area. Some like over 100, 200 attorney firms. one that was like a 50 attorney firm. And, what I learned from that was my heart would break for women who are and were just as credentialed, pedigreed, capable, and accomplished as their male counterparts, yet were robbed of opportunities for growth and development, and in some instances, their dignity at the hands of bullies and those folks that we came to know that really needed to develop what I now call mental fitness. So to just back up a little bit, I have been on a lifelong professional and a personal development growth journey myself as an individual. I've taken tons of programs and courses and books and study groups and masterminds, you name it, I've done it, because I recognized early on, I had somewhat of a turbulent childhood and I needed to make sense of that. That's kind of was the core of it. And then the more I got into it and expanded my thinking and my way that I navigated through my life, I wanted to try to help others who may have suffered similarly. And how I brought that into the professional environment was through executive coaching and specifically business development skills coaching in the professional services world. Because if you're a CPA or you're a banker or you're a lawyer or you're an engineer in a private practice, you really are a business owner, but nobody tells you that until you don't make the mark, until you're not generating clients, until you're not attracting the client base. And then it's more of the it's not the carrot, but the stick. It's more of the stick versus the carrot. And so a couple of years ago, I was invited to a group, a pod of women entrepreneurs to go through this program called Positive Intelligence, Building Mental Fitness for a More Resilient and Calm Life. And through this program, it's an app-driven program. It's also a book. The founder of the program is this professor at Stanford, Shirzad Chamine. He's taken almost 1 million people through this program. It's been tested on countless, I think over 500 CEOs, Google and Intuit, big companies as well as small. But the key is, or the jumping off point is, how we all deal with life's greatest challenges and how our brain brings us to either a place of calm and ease, or leaves us in a place of chaos. And so this work, which I wished I had known way back when, I know that I could have helped more people, more clients, etc., teaches us how to literally rewire the neuro pathways of our brains from the toxic thoughts that we have and the negative inner chatter that we all have. We all have that inner judge that judges ourselves, others, and our circumstances and situations, and puts a damper on that, turns out the volume of that negative self-talk that we have, which we've been conditioned to have most all of our lives, and teaches us how to replace that and to navigate into a much more positive space. And as I said earlier, I've taken so many different programs for personal development and confidence building and all kinds of things. But this program, Positive Intelligence, and Building Mental Fitness, is nothing like I've ever seen or experienced before, which drives my absolute passion to want to share it as broadly as I can with clients and colleagues. It's an 8-week program. There's some reading is involved, but it's very little. Actually, Shirzad had calculated it really comprises about 2% of our waking hours in a day, as far as what we invest into it. And over 6 to 8 weeks, we can completely rewire our brains and set us up for better resilience and easier life and less stress and anxiety and all those things. I really can't say enough about it, because it is so foundational to living a very healthy life in every sense of the word.
Well, that was the question I had. Is this, you used the word foundational. Do you see everything that you've done largely prior to this as really kind of sitting on top of what? I think you said this before we hit record. I wish I would have had this years ago.
Yes. And it truly is. I mean, for the folks that we work with, professional services providers, the financial planners, accountants, bankers, lawyers, they're very smart folks. I mean, they're
Yeah.
intellectually, they're gifted, they're more than capable. And so, I like you said, I published a book, Rainmaker Roadmap. I can teach anybody, that wants to learn how to build a prosperous business. It's a pretty clear recipe that we've created over decades. And it's not rocket science. And where people fall short is they don't honor their commitments to us as a team, or B, there's something else going on that's obstructing them or that is blocking them from accomplishing what they say they want to accomplish. And so again, it's a self-sabotaging ourselves. And you can apply this in every aspect of a life, whether you're a parent, you're a survivor of domestic violence, you're a college professor, you are a business owner. I mean, there's not an area of a human life that these principles and practices can apply. And positive intelligence now, it's been in the works, or it's been in existence for over a decade. It is expanding its application to, like they already have a very hefty, robust team building part of this practice, using the PQ, positive intelligence operating system, and how to resolve conflict in the workplace, or how to have greater sales and leadership, and every aspect that you can imagine, corporately as well as personally. You can take this synthesis of a body of study, which is this positive intelligence, which is the synthesis of 4 different areas of neuroscience. So it's not any woo-woo thing. And Shirzad and his team were very, very mindful in developing the operating system, and how would that play with the ultimate cynic or skeptic, like an engineer or a lawyer, who that's their training, to take things apart and dissect them and question their very viability. And it passes that test, certainly.
Okay. I guess just some questions around the program. You mentioned 8 weeks. It's app based. So do people sign up through you? Do they sign up through a website? Mm-hmm. Self-study, self-progress, or individual progress, or?
So great questions. So from A to B, we accept, so I'm very active on social media. I'm very active locally and in the world at large. Folks can sign up straight through me. I have a part of our Changemakers website that's dedicated to PQ. I've done a lot of publishing and explaining what saboteurs are, what the sage perspective is, what exactly mental fitness is, how you can tell if you are mentally fit or you can develop mental fitness. We are actually in the process of uploading a registration page into that section on our website, PQ, building mental fitness. So we have a mental fitness boot camp registration page on our Changemakers website, probably by the end of this week, or you can just email me. And so what it is indeed, it is an app-driven program that I facilitate 5 people to a pod, and that is to leverage the power of group learning. I run pods all the time. They're very kind of turnkey. So the program consists of, once a person, an individual expresses interest to participate and to learn, to see what all this is about, then I email that person through an email a link that they can download the app and get familiar with the app. So all of the modules, the video modules, there's 6 of the video modules in the 8-week program. They release each Saturday. And so one of the great things is that Shirzad had such forethought to develop the app and the program for very busy individuals. And so the 50-minute video module is segmented into like 6 or 7 segments. So you could literally grab a 5-minute segment on the go if you're on the subway or you're hailing Uber, whatever. I mean, you're waiting for your bus to come, whatever. And so you can take it in small chunks, and that really is good for the brain. And then that is self-study. But what we do is we come together as a pod once a week, usually Mondays or Tuesdays, and we discuss what has been covered and addressed in the video module that you have just watched. As a facilitator, there are discussion questions that I pose to the group to kind of help them apply what they've just learned. And in the in-between time on the app, and this is very critical, there are what we call each day from Tuesday to Friday, there's what we call focus of the day. And those are 2-minute micro practices that are specific to your particular saboteurs. And so let me just add a note to that. So when you express interest to be a part of the program, in addition to sending you a link to download the app, I also send our new members a link to a free assessment, which the output of that is to identify what your saboteurs are. There's a total of 10, not hundreds. The master saboteur is the judge. We all have that judging saboteur, those inner thoughts of how we're constantly judging ourselves, and that could be comparing ourselves or judging others or judging circumstances and situations. And so, we're never ever going to turn that completely off. But one of the objectives of this program, and it is really a journey, is to turn the volume down on the saboteurs as we learn how to introduce what's called the sage perspective. And that is, a more positive way of looking at our lives, our businesses, our relationships with ourselves and with others. And that is addressed in one of the modules, and actually multiple modules of that 8-week program. And so what we do is when you're watching the module, we discuss it once a week. There's lots of, learning and sharing. And then in addition to the coach challenge, I'm sorry, not the coach challenge, the focus of the day, which is kind of the theme of the day, 2 minutes, it's all two little minutes. And then you have 3 additional, what they call coach challenges that are also 2 minutes a day that are expressly addressing how to deal with and address your specific saboteur. So I'll just mention one. So one saboteur is called the pleaser. And it is essentially what it sounds like it is that if you kind of struggle with, feeling like you have to do everything for everybody, and you gain self-esteem or self-validation through doing things and helping people to the detriment of your own health, then, it's basically taking your largest strength or one of your greatest strengths and overusing it. And so in a coach challenge of the day for a 2-minute period, the Shirzad may address, how to recognize when your pleaser is trying to hijack you, and somebody's asking you to do something that you really don't want to do, or you really can't do, or it's going to cause you, great inconvenience to do, and learning how to navigate that in a more positive way. And so that is the work of the rewriting of the neuro pathways of our brain. So when we engage with the focus of the day, 2 minutes, 3 2-minute coach challenges a day over a 6 to 8 week period, there is tremendous proof through MRI imaging how it changes the neuro pathways of our brain. And then that group learning is a part of that. Reading the first 8 chapters of Shirzad's book, which goes and does a deeper dive into the saboteurs, and there's 5 sage powers that we don't really have time to address in a short group session. And that's also, I literally give folks the PDF of the book, or the audio book is available on the app. And so it's that is the framework of the program. And if you go no further than that, participants will have access to the app with those daily coach challenges for a year. following the program, or there is a part 2 that you can stay in the program, for a nominal investment and continue on with the journey. Just like, you think about, I'll just use a golf analogy. You think about Tiger Woods or Justin Day or one of these really high level PGA guys, they all have coaches. Michael Jordan had a coach. These folks, you don't get to peak performance without a coach. And so part of the positive intelligence journey is recognizing that, without having some type of coach or facilitator, it's too easy to go back to our well baked in, decades long habits. And one of the things that we talk about is, so much of the human experience and trying to make change. And I talk a lot about this in our Change Makers program. 20% is proven that is only constituted of learning and insight. So 20% of our behavior consists only of insight and learning, which is very important, but 80% is certainly directly dependent upon application and practice.
We're running short on time here, but just a quick question. We all have different saboteurs.
Mm-hmm.
Does your journey through the program vary? So if I'm in a pod with 4 of my closest friends and we all have different saboteurs, are we getting different materials?
No, same materials. It
Okay.
The program addresses all 10 saboteurs. One of the many values is you may not be a pleaser or an avoider or a stickler or a victim, but by going through and learning about all of the saboteurs, you will come to learn how to identify those in others. And so someone else's saboteur will not evoke or trigger your saboteur.
Gotcha.
So it's extraordinarily powerful, in any kind of interaction with another human being, with whatever capacity. The more you learn, the more prepared you are to have more positive relationships across the board.
Okay. People listening, if they have questions, want to get a hold of you, best way, email, LinkedIn.
Yep. So I am on LinkedIn. Kimberly Alfred Rice, I think, is the way that it's listed, or Kimberly A. Rice. And I'm sure you could Google me. I've been published almost 500 times. And so just Google my name. Email address, Kimberly at changemakers.com. Kimberly at changemakers.com. And so it's this exciting body of work. I'm very passionate. I've seen lives change. I've gone through the program. I still am a student as well as a facilitator. Life is complicated. It's moving at rocket speed. This positive intelligence and building mental fitness is for everybody.
It sounds like it. Well, I appreciate you being on today.
Thank you so much, Frank. It's always a pleasure to have a conversation and to see that smiling face and know that there's friendly people out there on the other side of this Zoom screen.
Thanks for joining us on the Networking RX podcast. Please put what you've learned into action today and let us know if you have questions, comments, or ideas for future topics. You can email them to us at podcast@amspirit.com. That's AmSpirit.com. Finally, so you never miss an episode, be sure to subscribe to the Networking RX podcast through iTunes, Overcast, or however you receive your podcasts. Now get out and network with someone.
The Networking RX podcast is the copyright production of AmSpirit Business Connection. All rights reserved.